The ultimatum. Olivia Carter's hands trembled as she stared at the final notice. The hospital wouldn't extend her brother's treatment without payment she simply didn't have. At 27, she'd already sold her apartment, drained her savings, and worked double shifts at the cafe until her feet bled through her shoes. None of it was enough to cover Tyler's experimental treatments for his rare autoimmune disease. "There has to be something else we can try," she whispered to herself, her apartment dim in the late evening light. Rain pattered against the windows of the tiny rental she'd moved into after selling her place. The knock at her door was so unexpected that Olivia jumped. It was nearly midnight. No one visited her this late. She peered through the peephole to see a tall man in an expensive suit, his face partly shadowed. "Miss Carter?" His voice was deep, measured. "I believe I have a proposition that might interest you." Against her better judgment, she opened the door a crack. "Who are you?" "Elijah Reynolds." "May I come in? This conversation requires privacy." Something about his calm confidence made her step aside. He entered, assessing her tiny living room with an unreadable expression before sitting on her worn sofa. "I'll be direct," he said, placing a leather portfolio on her coffee table. "Your brother Tyler needs the Harrington Protocol treatment. Insurance won't cover it. You're approximately $2.3 million short." Olivia felt cold dread wash over her. "How do you know about my brother?" "I make it my business to know things, Ms. Carter. I'm offering a solution." He opened the portfolio, revealing a document. "A marriage contract," she nearly laughed. "Excuse me?" 1 year of marriage. Legal, binding, but in name only. I'll cover your brother's medical expenses in full, plus a generous stipend for yourself. After 12 months, we divorce quietly." Olivia crossed her arms. "And what do you get out of this arrangement?" Something flickered in his gray eyes. "I require a wife for business purposes. My family's company has certain traditional requirements for leadership succession. My grandfather's will stipulates I must be married before my 35th birthday to maintain controlling interest. That deadline is approaching. So you're just going to marry a random stranger?" "Not random. I've researched potential candidates carefully. You're intelligent, discreet, have no romantic entanglements, and are motivated by something stronger than greed, family loyalty." He slid the contract toward her. "The terms are straightforward. You'll move into my home. We'll attend necessary social functions together. You'll sign a non-disclosure agreement. No intimate relationship is expected or required." Olivia scanned the pages, her heart pounding. The figures made her dizzy, enough to save Tyler and set them both up for years. "Why me?" she asked softly. Elijah stood, buttoning his jacket. "You have honest eyes, Ms. Carter. In my world, that's remarkably rare." He placed a business card on top of the contract. "You have 24 hours to decide. Your brother's condition won't wait much longer." After he left, Olivia called the hospital, confirming Tyler had been moved to the intensive care unit. His condition was deteriorating faster than expected. The next morning, she arrived at the address on the card, a sleek downtown law office. Elijah waited with his attorney, his expression revealing nothing as she signed her name beside his. No romance, no ceremony, just the cold exchange of signatures that would save her brother's life. "The transfer for your brother's treatment has already been initiated," Elijah said, not meeting her eyes. "Pack your essentials. My driver will collect you at 6. As she left the building, marriage certificate in hand, Olivia wondered if she'd just made a deal with the devil, or if she'd simply done what anyone would do for someone they loved. Either way, her life as she knew it had ended. She was now Mrs. Reynolds, a wife in name only, bound to a stranger whose eyes held secrets she couldn't begin to fathom. Gilded cage. Olivia stared at her reflection in the floor-to-ceiling mirror of her new bedroom suite. The woman looking back, dressed in a midnight blue gown that cost more than 6 months of her former rent, was almost unrecognizable. After 3 weeks in Elijah Reynolds' sprawling estate on the outskirts of the city, she still felt like an imposter. "Mrs. Reynolds?" A soft knock accompanied the house manager's voice. "Mr. Reynolds asked me to inform you that guests will begin arriving in 30 minutes. "Thank you, Harriet," Olivia called back. adjusting the diamond pendant Elijah had silently left in a velvet box on her dressing table that morning. Another prop for their performance. Tonight marked their first major public appearance, a charity gala hosted in their home. Their home. The phrase still felt foreign on her tongue. Despite living under the same roof, Elijah remained an enigma. He left before dawn most mornings and often returned late, retreating to his study where Olivia was tacitly unwelcome. She descended the grand staircase to find him waiting in the foyer, impeccable in his tuxedo. For a moment his eyes softened as they took her in. "You look appropriate," he said, voice betraying nothing. "High praise indeed," Olivia replied with a hint of sarcasm. "Should I prepare my acceptance speech?" The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. "The Prescotts will ask about our honeymoon. We went to Santorini. It was private, intimate. You loved watching the sunsets?" She nodded, memorizing their fabricated history. "And your grandmother's ring?" Elijah produced a velvet box, revealing an antique diamond ring that made her breath catch. Their fingers brushed as he slipped it onto her hand. Despite the clinical nature of the exchange, warmth bloomed where their skin touched. "One more thing," he said, voice lower. "People will expect—" Before she could respond, he stepped closer, his cologne enveloping her senses. His palm settled at the small of her back, guiding her closer until their bodies were inches apart. "Physical affection," she finished for him, suddenly very aware of his proximity. "I understand." The party was a blur of champagne flutes and forced laughter. Olivia played her role flawlessly, weaving the narrative they'd constructed about their whirlwind romance. Throughout the night, Elijah's hand remained possessively at her waist, his lips occasionally brushing her temple or cheek when others watched. Each touch, though performative, sent unwelcome shivers through her. "You've done well tonight," he murmured during a rare private moment on the terrace. "They're convinced." "I've always been a good actress," she replied, watching moonlight reflect off the garden fountain. "Though I'm curious why you chose this particular charade. Surely there are simpler ways to satisfy your grandfather's will?" His expression hardened. "You agreed not to ask personal questions." "Forgive me," she said coolly. "I forgot my place as the purchased bride." Something flashed in his eyes, hurt, perhaps, before the mask returned. "Your brother's latest test results showed improvement. The specialist believes he'll make a full recovery." The abrupt change of subject disarmed her. "You've been monitoring his progress?" "Of course. It's part of our arrangement." A sharp laugh from inside drew their attention. Elijah's jaw tightened. "Victoria Chambers," he said under his breath. "Former family friend? Best avoided." But it was too late. A striking blonde in a crimson gown swept onto the terrace, eyes widening with theatrical surprise. "Elijah Reynolds," she exclaimed. "The prodigal son returns to society and married." Her calculating gaze assessed Olivia. "How unexpected." "Victoria," Elijah nodded curtly. "My wife, Olivia." Victoria's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Charming. Though I must say, when I heard Elijah Reynolds had finally married, I assumed it would be to someone, well, from our circle." She touched Olivia's arm with manicured fingers. "Tell me, dear, where did you two meet? It must be quite the story." Before Olivia could respond, Elijah pulled her closer. "Olivia saved my life," he said quietly. "Not that you'd understand the concept of salvation, Victoria." Later that night, after the last guest departed, Olivia found herself wandering the West Wing, the part of the house Elijah seemed to avoid. A door stood slightly ajar, moonlight spilling from within. Inside, she discovered a conservatory, dominated by a grand piano draped in velvet. When she lifted the cover, a framed photograph tumbled to the floor. A much younger Elijah sat at this very piano, laughing with a dark-haired woman. Olivia carefully replaced it, a strange ache in her chest. "You shouldn't be in here." She turned to find Elijah in the doorway, his expression unreadable in the shadows. "Who was she?" Olivia asked softly. Silence stretched between them before he finally spoke. "No one who matters anymore." He stepped aside, gesturing for her to exit. "Some doors are kept closed for a reason, Olivia." As she passed him, their shoulders brushed. For just a moment, beneath his cologne, she detected something else, the faint scent of grief. Midnight confessions. 3 months into their arrangement, Olivia woke to screams echoing through the mansion. Heart-pounding, she followed the sound to Elijah's bedroom, hesitating outside his door. "No, don't touch them!" His voice broke on the words, followed by what sounded like thrashing. She pushed the door open to find him tangled in silk sheets, face contorted in a nightmare. Without thinking, she rushed to his side. "Elijah!" she called, gently shaking his shoulder. "Elijah, wake up!" His eyes flew open, wild and unfocused. In one fluid motion, he gripped her wrists, flipping their positions until he loomed over her, breathing heavily. "It's me," she whispered, heart hammering. "It's Olivia." Recognition slowly dawned. He released her immediately, pulling away as though burned. "What are you doing in here?" "You were screaming." Moonlight illuminated the sheen of sweat on his bare chest as he ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "I apologize for disturbing you," he said formally, as though they were discussing a business matter rather than him pinning her to his bed moments before. "Do they happen often?" "The nightmares?" He reached for a robe covering himself. "You should return to your room." Instead, Olivia moved to the small bar cart in the corner, pouring a glass of water. "Drink," she said, offering it to him. "My brother used to have night terrors after our parents died." "Water helps." After a moment's hesitation, he accepted the glass, their fingers brushing. "Thank you." She settled on the edge of the bed, maintaining a careful distance. "Do you want to talk about it?" "No." The answer came swiftly, but lacked his usual conviction. Silence stretched between them, not entirely uncomfortable. Outside, rain began to fall, pattering against the windows. "I used to have this recurring dream," Olivia said quietly. "After the accident, I'd be in the back seat of the car, watching my parents in the front. I could see the truck coming, but I couldn't speak, couldn't warn them." She traced patterns on the silk bedspread. "Sometimes I think the helplessness is worse than the grief." Elijah remained still, his breathing gradually steadying. Finally, he spoke. "In mine, I'm on stage. The music stops. I look up and they're gone. Everyone's gone. Just empty seats." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Then I hear them calling from behind a door, but I can never reach it in time." The confession hung in the air between them, fragile and significant. "Who is they?" she asked gently. He stared out the window at the rain. "No more questions tonight." But something had shifted. The invisible wall between them had thinned, if only slightly. The next morning, breakfast arrived with an unexpected addition, a small box wrapped in simple brown paper. Inside, Olivia found a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a tiny piano. That evening, when she returned from visiting Tyler at the rehabilitation center, she found Elijah in the kitchen rather than his study, awkwardly attempting to prepare dinner. "Harriet has the night off," he explained, looking almost embarrassed as he struggled with a recipe. Olivia hid her smile. "Here," she said, gently taking the knife. "Let me show you." Side by side, they worked in companionable silence. When his hand accidentally brushed hers while reaching for the salt, neither pulled away immediately. Over dinner, he surprised her by asking about her brother's recovery. "The doctors say he'll be released next week," she said, unable to hide her joy. "The treatment worked better than they expected." "Will he stay here?" "There's certainly room." The offer caught her off guard. "I hadn't considered it. I assumed you wouldn't want—" "It's your home too for now," he interrupted. "He's welcome." Later, as they washed dishes side by side, something she suspected Elijah Reynolds had never done before in his life, she noticed him watching her, his expression unguarded for once. "What?" she asked, self-conscious. "You're humming," he said. "Mozart's Piano Concerto No. 23. Heat rose to her cheeks. "It's been stuck in my head since I found the conservatory." "You know classical music?" "My mother was a music teacher. Not exactly the same caliber as—" She stopped abruptly, realizing her mistake. His expression closed. "As what?" "I know who you were," she admitted quietly. "Elijah Reynolds, the prodigy pianist who disappeared from the music world 6 years ago. I found articles and programs in the conservatory." The glass in his hand slipped, shattering on the floor. They both knelt to collect the pieces, fingers moving carefully among the shards. "I didn't mean to pry," she said. "Yes, you did." His tone was surprisingly gentle. "But perhaps I wanted you to." Their hands met over a broken piece, and this time, neither pulled away. His fingers intertwined with hers, warm and steady. "Play for me," she whispered. "Just once." The vulnerability in his eyes nearly took her breath away. "I haven't touched a piano in 6 years. Maybe it's time." In the silence that followed, something shifted between them. Something neither had anticipated when they'd signed their names to a cold, clinical contract that now felt increasingly irrelevant with each passing day. Shattered glass. The conservatory air hung heavy with dust and memory as Elijah stood before the grand piano. Olivia watched from the doorway, hardly daring to breathe as he slowly lifted the cover, revealing keys untouched for years. "I can't," he whispered, hands hovering inches above ivory. "I thought I could, but—" "You don't have to," Olivia said softly, moving to his side. "Not for me. Not for anyone." His fingers trembled. "For 6 years I've lived half a life. No music. No connection." He looked at her with an intensity that made her heart race. "Until you." When his fingertips finally touched the keys, the first notes emerged tentative and fragile, a whispered conversation after years of silence. But soon the melody flowed, filling the room with emotion so raw it brought tears to Olivia's eyes. She recognized the piece, Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, but had never heard it played with such devastating vulnerability. As the final notes faded, Elijah's shoulders shook. Without thinking, Olivia wrapped her arms around him from behind, her cheek resting against his back. She felt his heartbeat, rapid and strong against her palm. "Sophia loved this piece," he said, voice barely audible. "She'd dance while I played, holding Lily in her arms." Olivia closed her eyes, understanding washing over her. "The woman and child in the photograph. Your wife and daughter." "Yes." The word seemed wrenched from somewhere deep inside him. "They died because of me." He turned in her embrace, his face inches from hers. For the first time since she'd met him, Elijah's expression was completely unguarded, grief and guilt etched into every line. "I was performing in Vienna?" They came as a surprise. "To celebrate our anniversary." His voice broke. "The paparazzi chased our car from the concert hall. The driver took a turn too fast, trying to lose them." Olivia cupped his face in her hands. "It wasn't your fault. I was the reason they were there. My fame, my career." Bitterness edged his words. "After the funeral, I couldn't bear to touch a piano again. I disappeared, rebuilt my life without music, without feeling anything." In that moment, something broke and reformed between them. Olivia rose on her tiptoes and pressed her lips to his, not for show, not for any audience, but because suddenly nothing else made sense. He stiffened in surprise before his arms encircled her waist, pulling her closer as the kiss deepened. When they finally broke apart, breathing heavily, she whispered against his lips, "I wasn't in the contract." A ghost of a smile touched his mouth. "No, you weren't." Their lips met again, more urgent this time. His hands tangled in her hair as hers slipped beneath his shirt, tracing the warm skin of his back. Each touch, each breath seemed to heal something broken in both of them. Later, as moonlight spilled across their entwined bodies on the conservatory floor, Elijah traced lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "What happens now?" he asked, vulnerability threading his voice. Before she could answer, the harsh ring of her phone shattered their cocoon. Tyler's name flashed on the screen. "Liv!" Her brother's voice trembled. "There's someone here asking questions about you and Reynolds." "A reporter. She knows about the arrangement." Cold dread washed over her. "What did you tell her?" "Nothing, but she knows things, Liv, about the contract, about the money." After ending the call, Olivia turned to find Elijah already dressing. His expression shuddered once more. "Victoria," he said grimly. "It has to be. She's always been jealous, vindictive." "What does this mean?" Olivia clutched the sheet around herself. "It means we have a decision to make." His voice was cool again, businessman replacing lover. "The story breaks, my company suffers. Your brother becomes tabloid fodder. Unless we end this now, quietly, before she can publish." The words hit like physical blows. "End our marriage?" "It was always meant to be temporary, Olivia." He wouldn't meet her eyes. We fulfilled our purposes for each other. Last night wasn't in the contract, she whispered. A mistake. One I shouldn't have made. His voice hardened. I don't do attachments anymore. They're too dangerous, too destructive. Anger flared within her. So you're just going to push me away? Like you pushed away music? Like you pushed away your life after Sophia? Don't. His voice was razor sharp. You don't get to use her name. Someone has to. You can't keep living half a life, Elijah. What would you have me do? He demanded. Risk everything again? Watch it burn? Beyond contract rain lashed against the windows of the mansion as Olivia packed her belongings. 6 days had passed since their confrontation in the conservatory. 6 days of silence, of emptiness echoing through halls that had begun to feel like home. You don't have to go, Tyler said from the doorway of her suite. After his release from rehabilitation, he'd settled into the East Wing guest room. This place is big enough that you might never run into each other. Olivia folded the midnight blue gown, her first appearance as Mrs. Reynolds. That's not how I want to live. Ty, then fight for him. She smiled sadly. I tried. He's not answering my calls. The lawyers sent the papers this morning. The envelope lay unopened on her dressing table. Their marriage distilled to legal terminology and signature lines. What about Victoria and her story? Tyler asked. Elijah's team suppressed it somehow. She shrugged. Money talks. The doorbell echoed through the house. Moments later, Harriet appeared. Miss Carter, there's someone asking for you. Downstairs, a woman with silver-streaked dark hair waited in the foyer, elegant in a tailored suit. Olivia Reynolds? She asked, offering her hand. I'm Margaret Reynolds, Elijah's aunt. Shock rendered Olivia momentarily speechless. He never mentioned family. Margaret's smile was sad. My nephew has spent years pretending we don't exist. May we speak privately? In the study, Margaret studied Olivia with keen eyes. I was at your wedding, sitting in the back of the courthouse. Elijah didn't see me. Why are you here? Olivia asked. Because in 6 years, this is the first time he's played the piano. Margaret's gaze was direct. My sources tell me the conservatory was opened. That Chopin was played. Olivia flushed. You've been spying on him? Watching over him, Margaret corrected. After Sophia and Lily died, we nearly lost Elijah, too. He cut everyone off, abandoned his gift. She leaned forward. Until you. You know about our arrangement, I suspected. Margaret nodded. The timing, the suddenness. But something changed, didn't it? Something not in the contract, tears threatened. It doesn't matter now. He's made his choice. Margaret reached into her bag, producing a sealed envelope. He's in Vienna, at the Musikverein. Tonight was supposed to be his comeback concert, planned a year ago before he met you. Olivia's heart stuttered. What? He never canceled. Even after all these years of refusing to perform, he never formally withdrew. Margaret placed a plane ticket beside the envelope. His grandfather's will never required marriage for succession. Elijah created that story. Why would he? Because approaching you as the famous pianist would have changed how you saw him. He needed someone who wanted the man, not the legend. Margaret stood. The choice is yours. The contract ends at midnight. After Margaret left, Olivia opened the envelope. Inside was a program, tonight's Vienna Philharmonic performance with Elijah Reynolds, returning to the stage after 6 years. Accompanying it was a handwritten note. Some doors need to be reopened. Hours later, Olivia slipped into the grand concert hall, heart pounding. The audience fell silent as Elijah appeared on stage, looking both familiar and foreign in his formal attire. He sat at the piano, adjusting the bench, eyes scanning the crowd. For an agonizing moment, he didn't move. Whispers rippled through the audience. Then, just as the conductor stepped forward, Elijah stood abruptly. I apologize. His voice carried through the hall. But I can't perform tonight. Gasps and murmurs filled the space. 6 years ago, I lost everything that mattered, he continued. My wife, my daughter, my music. I thought I could never feel anything again. Until recently. His gaze swept the crowd. There's only one piece I can play tonight. And it's for someone who taught me that some broken things are worth fixing. As he began to play, Olivia recognized their song. Not Chopin this time, but an original composition that spoke of loss, healing, and something unmistakably like hope. Tears streamed down her face as she made her way toward the stage. When their eyes finally met, Elijah faltered mid-note. Without hesitation, he left the piano, striding down the steps into the audience. Ignoring the surprised exclamations, they met in the center aisle, oblivious to hundreds of watching eyes. "You came," he whispered, wonder in his voice. "You never signed the papers," she replied. His hands framed her face. "I couldn't. Not when I realized what I was really losing." The mask was completely gone now, his eyes alive with emotion. "I love you, Olivia. Not for the contract. Not for the convenience. For you." She smiled through her tears. "That wasn't in the agreement. I'm proposing a new one." He took her hands in his. "No end date. No conditions. Just us building something real." As their lips met, applause erupted around them. Not for the famous pianist's return, but for something far more miraculous. Two broken hearts finding wholeness in each other. Months later, they stood in the conservatory of their home, truly theirs now, as Elijah played while Tyler and Margaret chatted by the window. On the wall hung a new photograph beside the old one. Elijah and Olivia at the piano, his hands on the keys, hers resting on his shoulders. "Any regrets?" she asked, leaning against him as the melody concluded. Elijah pulled her onto his lap, arms encircling her waist. "Only that I wasted so much time being afraid." His hand came to rest on her slightly rounded stomach. "But we have the rest of our lives to make up for it." The contract that brought them together lay framed on the wall, not the legal document, but a simple handwritten promise. From this day forward, no more closed doors between us. What had begun as a business arrangement had blossomed into something neither could have anticipated. A second chance at love, at family, at living fully again. Proof that sometimes the heart's deepest contracts are written not in ink, but in the unspoken language of souls finding their way home to each other.